Hello and welcome to my pre-release preview video on QuadroSphere, my new 4-band Spectrum sculptor. So let's take a look at what makes this effect so special. And the first thing you're probably asking is, what is QuadroSphere? And the simple answer is a tool for bringing an instrument to life by creating soundscapes with a constantly moving sound source. It can be used to create as much chaos as you like, or impose subtle control over stereo placement with little or no movement. It starts with an incoming sound source, which is split into 4 different bands, E to D, using these frequency crossovers at the top of the display here. Each coloured frequency band has an associated sphere which you can see below. And each sphere allows control of left to right panning, stereo separation and band level. So we can pan each frequency band by just clicking, hold and drag left to right. We can alter the actual level of each band by just clicking and dragging up and down. And we can control the stereo separation using pinch to zoom. And we can go from anything from a mono to a stereo to a wide field of stereo separation. So it's very quick and easy to create a static soundscape here. But that's just the start. Let's take a closer look. Now in the following example we've got a copy of MIDI step which is sending MIDI information to Rings FX, which is passing through QuadroSphere. Now Rings FX has a really wide stereo field because it bounces sound between the speakers. So I'm going to put a stereo to mono on this before I start manipulating quad reverb. And I'm going to start by soloing these bands one at a time so we can hear what's coming through. Now as I'm panning band C and changing its stereo width, you can hear that. So let's re-enable all bands and do something exciting. Let's try some automation. Now this button toggles mono mode. Now listen what happens as I start adding stereo expansion to this. So let's re-enable the stereo to mono in AUM, and let's try taking a mono signal and making it into a stereo signal. Now we can do that either by panning individual bands left and right, or enabling a band's hash button. Or we can configure some kind of modulation where each band is, or the center pan is morphed in real time. Now if you look carefully you can see now that the little pointer on the outside of the sphere is actually oscillating backward and forward, simulating the width of the panning. And I think you'll hear that better if I go to solo that band and center its panning. Long pressing the mod button allows us to configure the amount of panning, the width and the speed. Now all those things introduce subtle panning, but let's knock it up a step using the randomize. So each time I press the randomize button, we'll get a different set of parameters randomized, and it will morph at the transition speed to that new set of parameters. Now currently we're controlling the pan and the width, but not the level. If I long press on the randomize button, it goes into automatic panning, and once one transition is finished, another one will start. If we swipe down on the randomize button, we can enable other options like we have here, and the actual frequency bands are now animating. Now to make that stand out even further, I'm going to click on the effects button of band C and turn on the reverb. Now from in this window I can click on band D and configure that with reverb if I wish. But since band D is the high frequencies, let's add a delay instead. We can even change the transition curve. So instead of fading in and out, it does a linear transition. Or we can go for something a little bit more chaotic. We can even perform fade outs and fade ins. So the automation is really flexible. I hope you get the gist of just what that can do. Now, as you've seen from the FX dialog, we've got a number of effects built in, but what happens if you want to use your own effects? Everyone has their own favourites. Well, in that case, you could use the multi-out. So there was actually 5 outputs on QuadroSphere, and we can route the other 4 bands individually out. As you can see here, I've just added 4 more channels, and I'm using the multi-out to have AUM check the output from QuadroSphere and reroute that to a particular channel in AUM. Now I'm going to turn down the original master channel and then audition this. And in theory it shouldn't sound any different, but the difference is we've got all 4 bands output on separate channels. Now some of you might want to route all them back and mix them back together into one single channel, and you can do that using the mix bus. So what we do is we take each of the output bands A to D and just send them all into mix bus A. Now this is just doing what internally QuadroSphere would do normally anyway. It would sum its bands together and pass that out the normal output which we muted. Now we've got everything flowing through that master mix band A. Now we're free to add additional AUV3 effects into a particular band. So I could pick anything I like, and let's go for Black Hole. And if we solo that band, it might give us an idea of what we're actually affecting. So again, you could simply use QuadroSphere as a glorified frequency splitter and use the output bands without any panning or stereo width or whatever. So let's take a look at snapshots. Now we can use those to perform external automation of QuadroSphere. And let's just see how it sounds on drums. I have a copy of Hammerhead here, and we'll start a drum beat going and have a play. Now we can have a play around with the compressor, because it works really well in certain situations, especially on drums. And if we enable the sidechain, it uses the original input signal to duck the effect. So if you've got something like reverb on, you can get kind of a ducking of reverb. So this could be quite interesting. We can also increase the band level of the high-end band. Okay, so now I've got something worthy of storing in a snapshot. Let's see how you do that. Now if you press this camera button, you'll see that the snapshot button just flashes for 5 seconds and then stops. But if we press the snapshot button then press S01, you'll see that that snapshot will have been saved. Now I'm going to turn off the automation and I'm going to just play around and reset everything, and just make a change to the spheres in terms of panning and width, and I'm going to store those settings in SO2. I'm going to do a third one. I'm just going to manipulate again, just change some of the options, press the snapshot, press SO3. Now all I need to do is tap on any of these buttons to actually animate to that snapshot. Now the first one had the random automation turned on, so that one animates freely, whereas SO2 and SO3 snapshots did not have the animation turned on. So They're just, when I hit one of those, it will transition to there where we snapshotted and then stop. Now let's take a look at the exposed AU parameters, because this is only as good as what you can do via automation. So you can see we can control the crossovers, we can control the pan, width and level of each band. We have all the snapshots available here, so we can trigger snapshots, and we have all the mono, wide, buttons and so on, fade in, fade out. Yeah, you've got everything there. So again, I think if you look at it, I've thought of just about everything, and this is a really useful tool, believe me. Now when it comes to snapshots, you've got complete control over what is played back when you click a snapshot. By swiping down on the little camera button, we can control the settings for each of the bands here. So if we want a band to play back the state of an effects button, we can turn that on. If we don't want the snapshot to start transitioning the frequency bands, we can turn that off, but I like it on. Now you notice that the mono, stereo, wide buttons controlled all of the wheels, but if we long press on any of these buttons, we can select, say, the first two spheres here, and we can animate the first two spheres to that wide setting, or stereo setting should I say. So if I long press on the equal pan and then select the first two wheels, you'll see they're centered again. Or an even quicker way than that is to simply touch two of the spheres. So I'm going to touch the center two spheres and then hit the mono button, and you'll see them transition without me doing anything. So you can quickly just tap on like the first button, the first sphere here, and hit wide, and you can see it animating to wide and so on. So that sums up this preview video of QuadroSphere. Things may change a little bit before release, but I think I've got the majority of everything working, and hopefully it'll be released soon. So let's play out with a couple more examples. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, thumb up the video, and I will see you next time.